to be voted on. Good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Like
Second time
Day.
around.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah. We'll begin this meeting in the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. I had mentioned just seconds ago that we're still waiting for a couple more members who are in transit to join us. However, we will begin the meeting. We have a quorum for that. We'll have a couple of presentations, which are at the end of the agenda, and then come back with the action items for the board to consider for a vote. So with that in mind, I remind everybody that the meeting is being live streamed. Members online are invited to hear. Make sure that you unmute your microphones when speaking. Please identify yourself when you're making or seconding a motion so that the secretary can capture who is making the motion. For those attending in person, please complete the sign-in sheet located in the hallway. If you wish to make a public comment, please fill out the public comment card and return it to a staff member. For those participating via Zoom, please keep your microphones muted until or unless you are called upon to speak. When appropriate on the agenda, we will request comments from those online, and you can indicate your desire to speak via the chat box. Staff is monitoring Zoom and will recognize you when it's your time to speak. With that in mind, Aaron, please call the roll.
Thank you very much. Mayor Bennett?
Present.
Frank Beal?
Present.
President Matt Brawley?
Present.
Mayor Gary Grasso?
Here.
Mayor Paul Hofort? Nina Idamudia? Mayor John Noak?
Here via Zoom.
Thank you, and we'll let you in momentarily, right? Because we have to vote on that. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
At the end of the roll call, there is one member on Zoom, so we will have to vote him in to the meeting.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nope, thank you. President Rick Reinbold?
Here.
John Roberson? Mayor Nancy Rotering?
Here.
Stephen Schaefer?
Here.
Carolyn Schofield? Ann Sheehan? Matt Walsh?
Here.
Leanne Redden?
Yeah.
And Dr. Kroos Mohammadian.
There is a quorum. However, we will allow one more member to join us. I'll entertain a motion to allow Mayor Noak to join us via Zoom. Is there a motion? Second. Moved and seconded. Any questions? If not, all those in favor signify by a vote of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote of no, and motion carries. Mayor, welcome.
Thank you.
First item on the agenda, again, we're going to skip the action items and go to item 9. Is it 01?
Yes, we are. Do you want to take a moment? Am I staying on?
And that will be a presentation. Aaron?
Sounds good. We're going to go ahead and just dive right into the annual report here. So let me get to my notes, item 9.01. Here we are. All right, our slides are correct. Chair
will recognize Carolyn Schofield now as part of the quorum. Welcome.
Thank you. All right, so our annual report is printed and in front of you this morning at your seats. I want to just give you a few highlights from the report booklet itself. You know, we reflected on this past year and the work of the agency and really recognize the fact that we have done a lot of good things as a region and wanted to just share those successes with you here. You know, we really are focused on making sure that we have a strong, thriving, and inclusive region here, and the annual report really just talks about how we have been establishing that through our programs, projects, and activities in our work plan. Next slide. You know, to start with, I know many of you maybe haven't forgotten about the fact that we spent a lot of time last year talking about the plan of action for regional transit that put forth some bold solutions to reform and transform our transit system here, and really think about how important it is that we address the upcoming $730 million fiscal cliff that our transit agencies are facing, and strengthen the economic access of communities across the region by transit to good jobs and healthcare and education across the region. Next slide. You know, together, we as an agency, in combination with yourselves and municipalities across the region, are taking steps to enhance and improve Americans with Disabilities Act compliance across the region. In 2023, we held several ADA training events attended by more than 300 people, produced a series of videos that are evergreen to make sure that we are continuing to maintain compliance and provide resources to locals so that they too have those resources and understand what's necessary for them to be able to be in compliance with this act. Not just because it's a federal requirement, but also because of the economic vitality that folks with disabilities can bring to local communities when they have true access to the places locally. Next slide. We also launched the Safe Travel for All Roadmap, a collaborative safety planning program in coordination with the Illinois Department of Transportation and the region's counties. Again, recognizing we'll have a presentation on safety performance measures and targets across the region. The increase in fatalities has been concerning. And even though we are seeing serious injuries decline, we are looking at those numbers and recognizing that fatalities of and the speeds of the vehicles and fatalities has been so high that might be one reason why we're seeing some, what I'll say, fluctuations in the numbers of the serious injuries here. But we have produced a number of safety newsletters. This next year, we will take action and make sure that our counties all have these safety action plans so that they can become eligible for federal funds to build projects and address that with infrastructure dollars as well. On the topic of climate, we have been working together with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus to make sure that we are advancing and mitigating and adapting the effects of climate change and preserving our high-quality water resources here that we have. We're investing in two major planning efforts. One is the development of a regional climate action plan. Again, we are also doing some work on transportation emissions modeling with the work of two national laboratories. You'll hear a little bit about that from Nora Beck on our agenda later today as well. And then together, we have been focused on the economy as well. About a year has passed since we launched the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership. We brought together the 7 counties across our region and the city of Chicago to signal that this region wants to work together, that they want to present a united front to be economically competitive to the region's businesses and potential businesses coming to this region. This program is managed by World Business Chicago, but our team really brought the depth and breadth of experience and data and continued to bring these partners together to do some big things. As you can see on the slide here, there have been 65 requests for research and information from WBC. They have had joint trips to Japan, to different conventions to really show that this region has the resources that are necessary to attract, retain, and maintain strong businesses in the region here. Next slide. Together we engaged with people and partners across the region and continued to put people first and really center the experience of local residents across our region, making sure that we're collaborating and fostering these relationships to deliver on our goal here. One example that you'll see highlighted in the report is our CARE program, our Community Alliance for Regional Equity. Through that CARE program, we have been bringing together a cohort of 12 community-based organizations, paying them for their time and resources invested in learning about our work, and really utilizing that as a launch pad for us to understand how we can make our work more oriented towards community-based organizations and really reflect sort of the true diversity of experience in transportation and economic vitality and in climate research projects that we are working on here. The second CARE cohort has begun its work already with an additional 3 community-based organizations being added to this work. So hopefully we'll have some time this year to have a fuller presentation to the board on the CARE program. And then next you'll see in the report here, one of the things that's really important to me is our people at the agency and our staff here. We continue to place a high priority on organizational culture and supporting our excellent team here, making sure that we are being strategic in the ways that we are retaining and recruiting our employees, thinking about how we as an agency, while we are only 125 employees strong, break down silos that have continued to exist and provide a welcoming and inclusive environment for our staff here. And really make sure that those staff feel not only welcome here, but welcome as they do their work out across the region. So these 2023 accomplishments would not have been possible without the support of the board. So I want to say thank you to you all for your support of the agency. And the report will be available to the General Assembly as required by law, but also available on our website, and really appreciate all of your partnership over this past year.
Any questions regarding the report? Okay, again, we're moving down the agenda on non-voting items. We're still waiting for one more member. Have we been in contact with them?
Yeah, we're working on it.
Okay. You can call it.
Okay.
Next item, I'm sorry,
So
Nine
then
oh-
moving on, we'll move on to 9.02.
9.02.
So I am going to present some of the highlights of the FY25 proposed budget and work plan. This will be on your agenda for approval next month, but recognizing that our budget and work plan incorporates a number of projects, activities, and programs, I want to make sure I'm spending the time with you to discuss some of the preliminary things you'll see in that budget and work plan here. So if I could have the next slide. And the next slide. Great. So just to ground us in the process, we received the annual federal mark for transportation and metropolitan planning funds from IDOT late in the calendar year, so usually around October. But really, this is an annual process of us developing a work plan. And so our work plan is developed with the thought that we really want to make sure that we are tackling the goals and objectives of the 2050 plan, that we are making sure that we are thinking about our strategic direction as well, which is our 5-year plan that prioritizes the work that we are going to do to advance 2050, and then think about how that needs to happen on a multi-year planning phase. So the UWP, the Unified Work Plan Program Funds, is a sub-award that passes through to MPOs across the state, and we also provide funds in addition to our partner agencies as well. So today, again, as I mentioned, is just an introduction that will be followed by a detailed presentation at our next board meeting in February, where we will submit an updated document for your approval. We then submit this document to IDOT in mid-February. They've requested a draft document so that they can also work on looking at the programs and projects included and get back to us with some feedback so that we can make sure that we have a contract in hand by July 1 to get our program started. So just next slide here. What's included in the UWP budget here? It's the core program. It's all of the activities that are required by law for MPOs to tackle, which is the long-range transportation plan. It's the transportation improvement program. It's the Unified Work Plan program budget, which is looking at how many projects do we have across the region? How are we spending our federal dollars across the region? And it also includes some of the big planning, the big data initiatives that we have, modeling, public participation. And as a reminder, we manage the programming of federal funds for those local projects across our counties and municipalities across the region here. There are also core funds that are given out to our partner agencies, so the Sub-Regional Council of Mayors, our transit agencies, the City of Chicago. We receive core budgets for them to participate in the regional planning and programming process. This allows their staff to be able to put projects into the transportation improvement program, so really thinking about sort of those federal responsibilities that allow those projects to receive those dollars as they move through the course of phase 2 and phase 3 construction. And then we also have a competitive program that's eligible for UWP partners. Again, this is counties, council, the transit agencies as well. And this funds transportation planning studies, transit ridership surveys, again, data purchases that benefit the region, but projects overall that are in support of the region's long-range plan here. These aren't ongoing activities, but more sort of short-term projects that, again, help us meet the goals of our strategic plan and the 2050 plan here. Previously, the counties did rotate some core funding around, but under this new call for projects, they are all eligible to compete annually for these program funds as well. So under the new methodology, we're targeting about $1 million each fiscal year for the competitive program. Projects that come through this process should be no less than $75,000 and no more than $750,000. A portion of those funds for the competitive program will also be set aside per the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act federal bill, which requires MPOs to spend 2.5% of our federal metropolitan planning programs to carry out safe streets and safe and accessible transportation options as well. So the draft FY25 core program and recommended FY25 to 25 to 29 competitive program will be presented to the UWP committee. It will then go to the transportation committee and ultimately the MPO policy committee for final approval, but you all will see this documentation in parallel. So next slide, the board is also responsible for our comprehensive budget. So there's the UWP budget and then the comprehensive budget. We bake these things together. Different entities have different authorities related to both, but you'll see that our comprehensive budget also includes funding for climate reduction pollution grants from the US EPA. It includes funding from the US Department of Energy. It includes additional funding from US DOT for us to do that safety action planning work with the counties, from the US DOT's Build America Bureau for our regional infrastructure program that we have here. And next slide, you will also see some additional funding from state agencies as well. So our water quality, our water supply work, the water quality management plan funded by the Illinois EPA and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources as well. So there's funding from those agencies in our budget. And then we do also have the opportunity and often apply for additional IDOT funds as well. So they have a pool of state planning and research funds that they manage. And this work has helped us deliver on speed management data and activities that we have ongoing. Again, the ADA transition plans for the region is funded out of this work. And we've been doing some work on statewide data analysis for land use modeling and really looking at sort of big data models through a program called Ecopia. So those will all be embedded in the annual budget and work plan, and wanted to highlight a few of those activities as well. We are constantly seeking external grants as well. Throughout the year, as opportunities arise, whether it's from DOT or other federal agencies, we also have a grant in right now to HUD to look at affordable housing access across the region as well. So just to talk a little bit about what you'll see in the budget and work plan as well. You know, we are able to serve the region in a variety of ways through these funding sources. You know, many of you are aware, but I thought this might be a good primer for new members that we have joining the board too, is that we do both regional and local work as well. You know, that big plan is talking about big policies that you all approve and really helps guide us as we develop these specific programs. But that doesn't really get executed on unless we're doing the work at the local level as well. So our local planning team really does help us think through what are those strategies, what do municipalities need, what do counties need? And really we work to strengthen communities through that direct assistance, through training, and through other resource opportunities that we're providing. We also, again, as I mentioned, program and prioritize big funds. So those transportation funds and the new carbon reduction grants that were available, congestion mitigation, air quality and improvement grants that are available. So those big programs are the implementation activities. So, you know, it's this whole life cycle of planning that we do here at CMAP. Next slide. Oh, and, you know, in terms of data, that's okay. Make sure I am where I need to be here. Yep. Well, in terms of data, one of the things that our authorizing legislation talks about is CMAP being an authorizing, the authoritative source of data for the region. We do this on the transportation end. All of the transportation projects that are built across the region that use federal funds need to use our data, our modeling, our socioeconomic forecasting data that we have. So we do invest this substantial resources in data acquisition here for the region and making sure that we maintain the integrity of that system. One item that you'll see in this year's work program and budget is going back to a travel survey across the region. Every 10 years or so, we go out to the region, we get a good cross-section of regional stakeholders, and we use that data that we learn from them, how they're moving during the day, and a lot has changed over the past few years, to really help inform how that model works and how we make sure that it is calibrated to assess the needs of the region as well. Again, each of our communities has a community data snapshot. Each of our counties have a community data snapshot. And we've been building on that data and including information around carbon reduction strategies as well by providing each community across our region with a greenhouse gas emissions inventory as well. And then I have touched on many of these things again, but working with the Council of Mayors on the transportation, surface transportation program and our transit agencies, again, managing the air quality improvement program dollars that we receive in addition to our local STP dollars. Again, the carbon reduction program was new this past couple of years with the infrastructure bill. And then also we have a dedicated funding source for transportation alternatives that we program as well, which is really making sure that we have a well-connected bikes and trails system across our region. Next slide. So I've said this, but I think it deserves to be said again, which is why it's here. We've got this 30-year plan on to 2050, and at some point during this next year, you're going to start hearing from us talking about what's that vision and what are the core principles for that next long-range vision that we have. We are also at the same time working to make sure that we maintain compliance with the regional transportation plan as well. And so we will be, again, we will be bringing to you the next iteration of the regional transportation plan in the next two and a half years when that is federally required to be due. And like I mentioned, there are a lot of recommendations in 2050, hundreds of recommendations, and there's only so much that we can do as an agency by ourselves and with our partners. And so the strategic direction really helps us drive, prioritize, say yes and say no to the things that we're best at. And the things that we're best at is transportation, climate, and regional economic competitiveness work. And throughout the work program, you'll see areas of work that are under all of those three headers, but you'll also see the work that is in the intersections of those areas. So transportation and climate, really understanding how we can reduce and drive down our greenhouse gases through transportation investments, through climate and regional economic competitiveness, recognizing that we have a freshwater resource here right outside our back door, and that really does make it a competitive place for businesses that are heavy water industry users to use, but at the same time, we need to be conserving water for people. And so you'll see projects and work that talks about sort of the balance of those things as well in the work program. And each of the work programs have these multi-year work programs that we've been talking about so that we can have sort of this 5-year outlook of how does our work advance the goals and objectives of the 2050 plan. And then all of that rolls up into our annual work plan and budget. So as you're reviewing this document, that really is sort of the umbrella and framework by which we developed it this year. It's a little bit different than last year's, where we just sort of listed all of the activities. We really tried to weave this together in a compelling story so that you can see the core objectives that we're trying to achieve in those topic areas, transportation, climate, and regional economic competitiveness, and understand where it is they impact the 2050 goals and objectives. Next slide here. So again, for us to be able to make progress on our transportation, our climate, our economic front, it requires a strong team of people across the agency. And so also in the annual budget and work plan, you'll see an operational section. That's sort of that fourth pillar that we have here, making sure that we have the strategic communications, that we have the operational support to the agency, that we're thinking about sort of what our legislative strategy is here, both on the state and the federal levels as well. And I think good examples of this essential work is really their work that underlies developing the program, developing the strategic plan, developing our budget as well. So this year we will embark around on some major initiatives, again, thinking about the long-range transportation plan, thinking about sort of what our next core vision pillars are for that vision, but that making sure that we are also continuing our commitment to transparency through robust information sharing and engaging diverse audiences here. So, and then lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't remember or remind you that we are rolling out a new enterprise resource system as well here. Again, that's critical for us to be able to streamline the operations, maintain that data integrity, and just upgrade our financial systems here at the agency as well. So the next slide, you'll see in that proposed budget, you'll have more details here soon when we deliver you the complete comprehensive budget here. But the UWP, that federal mark, is about $43.3 million. We subaward $6 million of that to our partners across the region, which includes some additional funds from the state. There's a statewide shared fund as well. We'll receive about $1.8 million that's incorporated in that $34 million mark there. And the required match for that comes from IDOT, from our counties, from our big implementing agencies, and from our municipalities here. And that's set at 20%, so $6.8 million. Also, additionally, in our comprehensive budget, we have about $7.8 million in competitive grants from all of those other agencies. And so when you get the total budget, we do have a total balanced budget of $42 million. So the vast majority of our funding is that transportation funding, but recognizing we want to continuously diversify our funding sources to do other work here, you'll see we do have a healthy chunk of work that is funded through other sources. So in terms of next steps, the preliminary FY25 budget summary work plan is available on our website. But that at your next board meeting, and actually shortly, we're anticipating that next week we will be able to send to all of our board members the complete comprehensive budget with all of the budget detail here. And that you will have multiple weeks in advance of your February board meeting. Amy and I will plan on reaching out to board members just to make sure that we're answering any questions that you might have in the interim about the budget and the budget details. But that once that approval is received, we submit that budget template to IDOT and work back and forth with them to make sure that we are meeting the goals and objectives that they have set for us. And then March 1st, we take that UWP companion document to the Transportation Committee for action, and that rolls up into the March 14th MPO approval by the MPO for the UWP mark. So next month, approval on the budget and work plan. And then tomorrow, we also have our MPO meeting tomorrow. They will receive a similar budget presentation and overview from us, but their primary concern is really that UWP mark. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions about the budget process.
Any questions? None being. Can we move on to 903?
Yes, why don't we go ahead and move on to 903?
So Nora, you're going to make that presentation. Thank you.
Good morning. I left it up. I have no idea how to do that. Oh, I do. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nora Beck. I'm a principal policy analyst with the Regional Policy and Implementation Division. Over the past year, I've been working to help the agency map out our short and midterm goals for air quality and water resource work at the agency, and I wanted to provide you with an update on our regional climate action planning work. Before I get into those details, I just wanted to reflect on yesterday's report that 2023 was the hottest year on record by a large margin. Scientists have reached overwhelming consensus that climate change is here, and the evidence is looking like it's intensifying. The consequences are going to be diverse, and I'm sure each of you have seen the impacts in your respective lines of work. In northeastern Illinois, we are most familiar with increased precipitation and flooding, extreme heat, humidity, increases in freeze-thaw cycles. And elsewhere, other areas are experiencing intense droughts, water scarcity, fires, rising sea levels. Regardless of the geography, these impacts from climate change could pose severe costs to our region's people, our infrastructure, and our economy. But it is not too late for us to limit the impacts of climate change. In the next slide, we see that we are making regional progress. The region has reduced its emissions by 9% since 2010. However, these decreases are not enough to reach the reduction goals that we set in ONTO 2050 or the federal goals that are now focused on reaching net zero emissions by 2050. With the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, the US EPA has established an unprecedented opportunity to develop and start implementing climate action plans across the region, and those will help us to reach these reduction goals that we've set. Both the state of Illinois and the Chicago Metro Statistical Area are participating in this program, and so I wanted to use our short period of time today to provide an overview and start a longer-term conversation about climate action planning in the region. So the next slide, just to introduce, the US EPA has established the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. It provides $5 billion in grants to states, local governments, tribes, and territories to develop climate action plans and then implement those plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other harmful air pollution. This is a two-phase program. The first phase is $250 million of non-competitive planning grants, and then the second phase is approximately $4.6 billion in implementation dollars. In the next slide, we can see the stated objectives of this program. Again, it's to develop those ambitious plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and then fund those transformative projects to implement those plans. Both of these activities need to advance the goals of the Justice 40 initiative, which I think you're all familiar with, of delivering 40% of the overall benefits of relevant federal investments to low-income and disadvantaged communities. In the next slide, just the first phase of work is already underway. This past year, US EPA provided formula grants to all states and largest metropolitan statistical areas that wanted to participate to complete those climate action plans. And it comes with specific requirements of those plans. The state of Illinois, along with our neighbors in Wisconsin and Indiana, have responded to that call. and they will be drafting climate action plans. In Illinois, our EPA is taking the lead on this effort. In the next slide, you can see the geography of the Chicago metropolitan statistical area. For us, the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus responded to the call in partnership with CMAP and the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission. Just a note, this geography of this planning work is going to be slightly different, right? It's this larger area, so 9 counties in Illinois, 1 county in Wisconsin, and 4 in Indiana. I wanted to step through the planning timeline here for these projects in the next slide. The US EPA is seeking 3 main deliverables of the planning work. The first is a Priority Climate Action Plan, or PCAP. The PCAP will provide a list of near-term, high-priority implementation projects to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And it's really designed to help guide the federal government make decisions about the implementation funding that's available in phase 2 of the program. The Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus is going to be leading the development of PCAP, and CMAP is there to assist in that process. This is due in short order. You'll notice the due date of March 1st, 2024. It'll be here very soon. But we are confident to make this deadline because of all the work that Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus has done on regional climate action planning to date. The second major deliverable is the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. CMAP will be leading this work for the MSA, and this planning process needs to cover all significant greenhouse gas emissions, sources and sinks, and has a number of other requirements, including setting emission reduction targets, analyzing the benefits or the co-benefits of other air pollution reduction, as well as benefits to low-income and disadvantaged communities. The CCAP is not directly connected to a funding source like the PCAP is. It's more about laying out that larger, longer-term strategy for reaching national emission goals. And it is due the summer of 2024. So you're going to hear more from us along the way as we work on this process. The third deliverable is the status report. CMAP will also take the lead here, and it's a great opportunity to track and reflect on our progress, update the plan where needed, and identify the next set of priorities. And that's due the summer of 2027. So the next phase of the program is the implementation portion, and they're focused on making competitive implementation grants for strategies and jurisdictions that are covered by that Priority Climate Action Plan. The funding is focused on policies, programs, and projects that can reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the near term and create benefits to low-income and disadvantaged communities. US EPA has stated that they're looking for large-scale collaborative projects that help us to stimulate the transformation towards a decarbonized economy and demonstrate approaches that could help elsewhere and unlock opportunities for greater emissions reduction. They are anticipating only awarding 30 to 115 grants total across the nation. At minimum, the grants will be $2 million and at maximum $500 million, and there's different funding tiers so that similar sized projects are competing against one another. Eligible applicants include public agencies, state, county, municipal governments, special units of government, and coalition applications are encouraged. The deadline is April 1st, so you'll note that that's just a month after we'll be submitting the state and the MSA Priority Climate Action Plans. So I wanted to take a minute to go over that timeline in more detail. The notice of intent, in the next slide, you see the notice of intent for funding is February 1st, just a couple of weeks. This is optional, but it will help us understand what efforts are being considered in the region. A month later, our state and regional PCAPs will be submitted, and then we'll have the phase 2 applications due on April 1st. US EPA is planning on notifying recipients in the summer, and then they'll have 5 years to spend down those funds starting in October of 2024. So that's going over some minutia, but we really wanted to highlight this timeline and the importance of being able to get this opportunity and put forth competitive regional applications for the region. CMAP is currently working with potential lead applicants to help coordinate efforts and connect people who are proposing similar projects to one another. And so we are seeing a number of governments already taking the lead in this effort, and that's really exciting. Please reach out to myself or anybody on our governmental affairs team if you have ideas or questions or want to understand this process in more detail. Before I close here, I did want to come back to that comprehensive climate action plan, because once we get through these upcoming milestones of developing the PCAP and submitting those implementation grant applications, we'll be turning our focus on that longer term climate action planning process. We plan to provide you with updates over the next 18 months as we work to hit this deadline in coordination with our partners. And to supplement this process, we have been able to secure technical assistance through the Clean Energy to Communities initiative that's offered by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. More specifically, this will allow us to work with Argonne and Oak Ridge National Laboratories, as well as our partners at ComEd and the Respiratory Health Association, to leverage the sophisticated modeling support of the national laboratories to explore just how we can effectively reduce transportation emissions to reach those national goals. This will be a scenario planning exercise that'll help us inform our climate action planning work and help us answer critical questions about the role of electrification, how that will work with our utility system, what is the effectiveness of different policy approaches. So thanks again for your time here today. Actually, before I think later on in your agenda, you'll be reviewing this agreement for the Clean Energy to Communities. So the timing worked out. I'll give you a little more context on that. We are eager to begin engaging you and other regional stakeholders on climate action planning. We believe that this is a very large-scale process, but this work will help us identify those actionable next steps that we all can take, and not only to reduce emissions, but to help address other regional priorities. So thank you.
Questions of Nora? Nora, I want to thank you. I know this is a major item that's been on our agenda now for 2 years, and the work collaboration that's going on with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. I know that we have really drilled down, town to town, and I think the participation has been elevated, and it's important work, and I just feel very positive that we will meet some of the goals and recommendations that have been laid out some time ago with local governments, and money makes the difference too, and I think with the ability to provide funding has really perked up a lot of municipalities about getting involved and really being serious about making a change.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I just had a couple. Thank you for that presentation.
Oh,
appreciate it. And I know you're sitting down with RTA stuff, I think,
Yes.
later this week, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of money there, and meeting the deadlines is going to be critical so we can access those dollars. I already made a pitch to Neil, so I'm just making it for the record. Hopefully that we are prioritizing transit projects in our region, because we've got obviously some big needs and big opportunities, I think, is more important. And there's a lot of money there. So we have already sort of been working through what and we will certainly be applying for those dollars. So hitting those deadlines, especially on that first step, so we can actually get beyond the notice of intent and actually apply for those dollars, because it is coming at us very fast.
Yes.
And I think it's, we can't miss any of these opportunities. I think transit's going to be a big piece of the solutions in all of this.
I absolutely agree. The initial rollout has been slow, but now the money is coming, and there's so many opportunities to take advantage of that. And again, that's why I think municipalities now are really getting serious about individually their action plans to be part of their overall guidance here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any further questions? Nora, thanks.
Thank you.
Aaron, you want to give your executive director's report? We are stretching this out. I'm still waiting for, unfortunately, one more member to show. Let's hope it still happens.
We're double checking. Well, I skipped over my Happy New Year. It's good to see you all. Good to see you all. Again, here. I hit on a couple of these things when I was talking about the annual report and the forthcoming budget and work plan for next year. But, the last couple of years have shown, again, the enduring value of the 2050 plan and what we've laid out there. I think to recent shifts in transportation and people moving and where people are working and how they're choosing to get to those places has really impacted how we see downtowns being vibrant, right? And where our economy is going. And while we don't have those answers just yet, and I don't think anybody does, I was just at the Transportation Research Board's conference, and, we're not alone in sort of struggling to understand where the dust is going to settle. I know that the big picture thinking that we've done on the long range plan with our partner regional agencies has shown that these core pillars of our work are really important, really understanding again, how our transit and transportation system impacts our regional economy, which also impacts our climate. And so the core pillars of the 2050 plan, inclusive growth, prioritizing our investments, and making sure that we are resilient to changes, both known and unknown, are things that I think are evergreen. But it is time for us to start talking, as I mentioned earlier, with you all about what sort of that next vision. Are we on the right path? What else do we need to incorporate in this long range vision for our region? And so we will be kicking off a little bit later this year here, some planning sessions with you all to get your insights and to really think big about the next sort of 25 to 35 years of this region and what we should be doing to make sure that we are being visionary, that we are being, also clear-eyed in what we can do and what we can't do, and also understanding what the political challenges are that are going to be on the horizon that will maybe be barriers in us accomplishing some of those things as well. So again, that's what's on the horizon coming a little bit later this year at your work plan and board meetings. My hope would be is that we'd have some strategic sessions or workshops with you all so that we can have a less formal setting and be able to dig into the details and really hear from you what's your concerns and what you think the opportunity is for us as a regional agency. But at that same time, we will still be bringing you structured regional transportation plan activities because that is due in October of 2026. So you will see procurements forthcoming for consultants and support staff on those capital investment development process as well. And while 2.5 years does sound like a long time to get that regional transportation plan done, these plans, are big and weedy, and the data analysis takes a while, the scenario planning and the modeling and all of that. So it will be here before you know it. Also wanted to announce to you all that our next technical assistance call for projects is going to open on February 26th. Again, as for we've done for a number of years, we are doing this in partnership with the RTA. So we're excited to be coordinating with you all again on this, and types of assistance include pavement management plans, corridor plans, ADA self-evaluation plans and transition plans, transportation safety plans, bike pedestrian plans, transit-oriented development planning, and more. And so I believe that your team, Leanne, is leading the application receipt this year. And then typically what happens is behind the scenes, we say like, oh, that's a good transit project. RTA should evaluate it. No, it's a planning project. CMAP staff should evaluate it. And so we're hoping for a robust and healthy set of applications to review and evaluate this year. We've transitioned a little bit away from sort of the traditional, we do comprehensive planning and really been thinking about how do we help communities make sure that they're ready to accept federal grants, that they're thinking about having their capital improvement plans in order. That pavement management plan sounds maybe boring on the surface, but really important to understand how you should be investing your local dollars in the wisest way to get the best return on investment. And they've made a big, meaningful difference in communities that we've done those for across the region. One other thing that we're very excited about this year is that in partnership with the Urban Land Institute, we have helped facilitate discussions between development experts in 3 communities. This happened last month. We had a joint discussion with the villages of Berkeley, Hillside, and Hillside together to leverage the prairie path that runs through both communities and their proximity to Metra to think about how they attract investment along their shared Taft Avenue corridor. Again, with the village of Montgomery. Thank you, Mayor Brawley, for showing up to the meeting. Oh, you want to share a little bit about it? Yeah. Would you turn your mic? Yeah. Well, these resources, these ULI technical assistance panels are just a really great opportunity for people who are actually working in the development community come in and, at a reduced fee in partnership with the ULI, provide their just huge expertise to communities. And it's something that we want to do more and more of here. We'll continue to have those as an offering for communities in this next call for projects. I mentioned that we invited 3 new community organizations to participate in this year's cohort of the Community Alliance for Regional Equity, our CARE program. They are the Youth Family Center of McHenry County, the Indo-American Center, and the Greater Englewood Chamber of Commerce. So we're excited to sort of bring additional experts to the table to really hear, again, from the diverse perspectives of community-based organizations doing work in communities to help us understand, again, how our information can be less wonky and more practical, and also for us to make sure that we're incorporating more than just sort of the planners in the room that we have here, insights, and that we're thinking a little bit more broadly in our work too. Mentioned the household travel survey. Last year it was called My Travel Survey. Again, it is the foundation for calibrating our travel model. One of the things I will be asking of board members is that you share this information locally. We need as many people participating in this process as possible in order for us to be able to validate this data, make sure that we have a diverse array of stakeholders across the region. I believe the last time around we had to do a supplement to the work to make sure that we had good representation of Latino community across our region and understanding how they're moving on our system as well. So the more people we can get participating, the better. So we will provide you all with more information this spring on that. And then the last thing in my executive director's notes this morning here was the Regional Planning Act cleanup legislation. We've reached out to many of you, but we're starting conversations. I know that there are a few more board members I need to talk to personally about what it is we have on the table here. I'll share, we recently met with a small group of board members to pick back up the discussion on the bylaws of CMAP. I'll also recognize that John Robertson has joined for the minutes. Thank you. So that we can continue the discussion on the operational aspects of our agency and thinking about how our bylaws can help us continue the operations of our work on an ongoing way. So that discussion will continue at your next meeting. But in parallel, our team has been working on proposed changes to CMAP's enabling statute, the Regional Planning Act. The primary change really would involve sort of the discussion about the 4/5 approval requirement. I want to be very clear, we are not seeking to change that threshold for items of regional significance. The long-range plan, our policies, how we program federal transportation dollars, how we develop our legislative agenda. Those are items that I truly believe having the broad consensus of our region stakeholders around this table is important, and that 4/5 majority should stand. What we would seek to do is to add language that states that other matters would be determined by a process laid out in CMAP Board bylaws, a simple majority. That would really help me and the team here ensure that operational consistency is available for our consultant contracts, for our data purchases, for our grant agreements, to make sure the work of the agency can continue but continue to maintain that 4/5 integrity for the regional plan, for regional policy, for federal investments across the region. So again, this will be in tandem with our appropriations request that our legislative team pursued last year. But again, if I have not spoken to you already, Blanca will be reaching out so I can set some time with you to talk just through your questions, your concerns, or other thoughts you might have as we open up the act. We would also do some cleanup of things like chairman to chair, looking at the gendered language, and probably striking some of the stuff that was important when it was NIPSI and the NIPSI stand-up part of that as well, just for cleanup purposes. But happy to answer any questions or thoughts from board members.
Any questions, which was going to lead me into a segue of, John, thank you for being here. That's the problem we have regarding bylaws right now is having a supermajority. And as Aaron has spelled out, on major issues, I think the request is not to change it. And certainly on regional consensus, that's why it was set up in the beginning, that we had a supermajority of our partners agreeing on issues. However, from an operational standpoint, even on today's agenda, if we didn't have the 12th member to be here, some of those items obviously could be carried, but things like the contracts and procurements, which are in the budget, are being held up or would be held up because of our bylaws. The staff in particular in that area has always done from day one a tremendous job in vetting out whatever the contract or procurement was, going through a process on a final recommendation. So, and it's also in our budget annually regarding that issue. So those are some of the things we need to think about. But even more importantly, the board has the agenda for the year. We meet every Wednesday, second Wednesday, and we all appreciate the work and time that is put into this by the board members. But attendance is critical because of that 3/5 majority. We are hamstrung with even having a meeting unless we meet that threshold. So legislatively, we've had some problems, and we're going to again go downstate to try to see if that could be possibly changed or amended to clean up, so that the administration of this organization is not hamstrung by votes or non-votes, I should say, and operating on a daily basis. So that's again to piggyback onto what Aaron has said. That continues to be a problem. Today, unfortunately, because we had a transition of 2 members, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mayor Karen Darch and Board Member Ann Williams regarding their service to this board. We thank them for the years. I think it's 2018 for Karen and 2019. I'm sorry, 2019 for Karen and 2018 for Diane. We thank them for the service. This is not necessarily an easy job. The job requires, number one, to be down here every month, but more importantly, the input that takes place by the board members on our operational, monthly operational things, but certainly the yearly planning that's required for the region, short-term and long-term. So again, I appreciate to both of them for their service to this board. I know Northwest has made a recommendation for replacement, and unfortunately, Mayor Paul Hobart could not be here. He was sick. So we look forward to having him join us next month. And I know Diane Williams' replacement, hopefully there will be a recommendation by next month, so that we're back up to full, full status with board members. But again, you can see how critical 1 or 2 members, even in a transition situation, puts pressure on this board to meet the threshold of 12 members to attend the meeting. So again, I ask you if you to please commit to that schedule going forward. Last year, as you know, we had to end up skipping 2 months because of a ability to not have a quorum, and you can see what that affects the operations. So please, and obviously if you're sick, which Mayor Noka is online, you do have a right to ability to participate by Zoom. So that option is still out there, although no greater than 3 can do that. So hopefully the flu doesn't spread around to the whole board and you can't make the meeting. But again, thank you for your work on this in this organization as being a board member, and we look forward to working with everybody going forward. So let's quickly go through some of the items of action. First, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the minutes of our October meeting, which was the combined CMAP MPO Policy Committee. Is there a motion?
Motion, Walsh.
Moved in second. Any questions on the minutes? If not, all those in favor signify by a vote of aye.
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 Those opposed, vote of no. The motion carries. Let me quickly go through our action items here. Okay, under procurements and contracts, Alicia, I'm sorry. There are 4 items.
4 items.
First item, authorization to enter into a contract with Resultant an amount not to exceed $177,778 for RFP 285.
Testing. Oh, okay. Thank you. So I'll start again. Item number 1, authorization to enter into a contract with Resultant in an amount not to exceed $437,778 for RFP 285 data governance for data and information services. CMAP is a major source of quality data for Northeastern Illinois. As availability of data and data sharing opportunities increase, it is critical for CMAP to manage its data and develop a strategy of data governance that ensures accuracy, reliability, and security. Following a review of consultant responses and qualifications to the request for proposal, Resultant is the selected vendor for the project, and support for this project will be provided with fiscal year 24 UWP funds. Item number 2, authorization to amend a contract for a cost increase of $137,500 with Eco Interactive for services related to the eTIP platform.
In June 2020, CMAP entered into a 5-year agreement at a cost of $864,816 with Eco Interactive to provide project tracker software as a service, ETIP subscription with 250 annual support hours. The online ETIP database is the official record of federal transportation funding and regionally significant state or locally funded projects. The ETIP system is migrating to a new platform, and there is a need to amend this existing maintenance contract to customize and move CMAP's ETIP to the new platform. The new contract total shall not exceed $1,002,316. Support for this amendment will be provided by fiscal year 24 UWP funds. The third item, authorization to enter into a 3-year contract with National Renewable Energy Laboratory to support the Reaching Net Zero Transportation Energy Scenarios for Northeastern Illinois Initiative for Communities to Access Clean Energy in the amount of $500,000. CMAP, in participation with ComEd and the Respiratory Health Association, is a recipient of a grant award through the Clean Energy to Communities C2C Partnership Program. CMAP will receive $500,000 over a 3-year span to refine tools and analyses to help reach net zero transportation emissions by 2050. NREL will administer the project. Funding for this project is through an award to CMAP and its partners through the In-Depth Technical Partnerships Competitive Program. Final item, amend the authorization to enter into contracts with up to 6 consultants for a 24-month term for RFP 287, Safe Streets for All, SS4A, Countywide Safety Action Plans, SAPs, for an amount not to exceed $4,205,000. On October 11, 2023, the CMAP Board authorized a not to exceed amount of $2.7 million to enter into up to 6 contracts for a 24-month term for the SS4A countywide SAPs. At that time, CMAP had the necessary documents to commence work with a proportion of the counties, and to keep the project progressing, requested partial approval from the board. CMAP has now selected consultants for all 6 county safety action plans. The additional request for $1,505,000 represents the delta necessary to complete all 6 safety action plans for a total not to exceed $4,205,000. This project will be funded by the Safe Streets for All discretionary grant fund. Pending any questions, we're requesting approval for these 4 items.
Any questions regarding those contracts?
Motion to approve, Rotary.
Second, Noak.
Chair recognize a motion to approve items 1.5 to 1.4, 5.1 to 5.4. Any questions on them? If not, all those in favor signify by a vote of aye.
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 Opposed, vote of no. The motion carries. Thank you, dear. Next item on is basically for the board to approve the 2024 CMAP board meeting schedule. If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept that.
So moved, Noak.
Rotary.
Moved and seconded. John, you're sounding like me now. Any
I'd like to
questions?
move these along.
You and me both. That's what I'm doing. All those in favor signify by a vote of aye. I'm sorry.
Aye.
Opposed, vote of no. Motion carries. Next item is for consideration of the CMAC committees for the calendar year 2024. Aaron?
Yeah. Annually, the board approves the committee structure it will use for the following year. At this point, there aren't any proposed changes to the structure for calendar year calendar year 2024, not fiscal year.
So moved, Noak.
Second, Rotary.
Moved and seconded. Any questions regarding that item? If not, all in favor signify by a vote of aye.
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 Opposed, vote of no. Motion carries. Next item is to appoint John Robertson to the executive committee to fill a vacancy. Any questions? Any questions regarding that?
So moved, Noak.
Moved and seconded by John. I'll give you the second in that one. Moved by Mayor Reinbold. I'm sorry. Any questions regarding that appointment? If not, all in favor signify by a vote of aye.
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 Opposed, vote of no. The motion carries. Next item is the roadway safety transportation targets, right? Is that?
That's correct. We have Vicki Barrett online who's going to go over our roadway safety performance targets. This is a federal requirement that the board and the MPO Policy Committee approve annually. Vicki.
Hi, everyone. Before I begin, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Hi, everyone. I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C., where I'm attending the Transportation Research Board meeting. So I apologize for not being there in person. There is a packet, there's a memo in your packet that covers the details of the 2024 roadway safety targets. Should you have any questions, I'll give the highlights of it today for your approval. I'll go over the roadway target process very quickly, and I will introduce the targets that are set for 2024, and then go over quickly a few recommendations to follow up. So the Safety Targets Program is part of the FHWA's Transportation Performance Management Program. There are a number of different categories of these measures, including transit safety and roadway condition, pavement condition, but the safety targets are something that are required as part of the Highway Safety Improvement Program. For IDOT, MPOs have been required to identify safety targets with the MAP 21 legislation. The first year that we ever set targets was 2018. We have the option to either support the state identified targets or identify our own regional targets, and they are set annually. The process each year for the roadway safety targets begins after after IDOT submits its HSIP annual report in August, I think August 31st. We receive IDOT's identified targets shortly thereafter. We bring them to our Transportation Technology and Operations Coalition in November for discussion. And then in December, we brought them to our Transportation Committee for further discussion and their approval to bring them to you. And tomorrow we will bring them to the MPO Policy Committee. So here we are today requesting your approval of our annual roadway safety targets. There are 5 measures of safety in these targets. As I mentioned earlier, we can identify state targets or identify our own. We have only supported IDOT's targets in the past, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the later part of the presentation. Next slide, please. Just to recap the targets and the desired trend and how we've performed thus far. Of course, these measures are the number of fatalities, the rate of fatalities per VMT, the number of serious injuries, the rate of serious injuries per vehicle mile traveled, sorry, that's VMT. And then finally, the 5th target is the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. Of course, the desired trend on all of these is downward. As Aaron mentioned at the top of this meeting, the current trend for fatalities and rate of fatalities is upward. And this is important to understand how the targets are set according to IDOT. So upward trending targets have a 2% policy-based reduction identified in the target. That means that the target is set at 2% below the rolling average for the previous 5 years. It just represents an intention to reverse that trend, and it's a policy-based target. The targets that are trending downward are developed using a least squares regression analysis. So the 2024 targets, I'll go over quickly here. They're also in the memo in your packet. These are the 5 targets, and I'm going to show them with a little more context next so that you can understand how they relate to our past performance. Next slide, please. So traffic fatalities, as we mentioned, have been trending upward. Targets have been set using a 2% based policy, a 2% policy-based reduction. The target identified for 2024 is 1,121.9. The rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled has also been an upward trending data point. So again, a 2% policy-based reduction has been used to identify the target of 1.105 for 2024. Serious injuries have been trending downward. Therefore, a different method was used to identify this target in hopes that the trend continues to scale downwards. And that target is 8,418 for 2024. Similarly, the rate of serious injuries has also been identified using a least squares regression analysis, and the target for 2024 is 8.498. Finally, the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries target, which has been trending downward just ever so slightly in recent years, is set at 1,375.7. So our recommendations for you today are to support the targets that I've just presented that have been identified for IDOT for 2024. Other recommendations, of course, include that we will continue our work toward the goal of zero traffic deaths by 2050, as identified in our On to 2050 plan. Aaron already talked about the large portfolio of safety work that the agency has developed, including our SS4A work, which is receiving a lot of praise here in Washington, D.C. with our federal partners, and many other plans that we have in place to not stop at all on pursuing a goal of zero traffic deaths. And then finally, I'll just mention that we've been in discussion with our transportation committee and all our local partners about using the safety work that's in place now to eventually identify our own regional safety targets in alignment with our next long-range transportation plan. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Otherwise,
Yes, Mayor?
Yes, can you explain to me how the rate of serious injuries are going down in both categories, and yet the fatalities are going up? It seems to me counterintuitive, but that's just me.
There is a theory, and this is a theory that exists both at the regional level and the national level, that crashes are becoming more deadly for a number of reasons. There's been an increase in the number of tickets issued for aggressive speeding, which is speeding more than 25 miles over a speed limit. Vehicles have become more dangerous in crashes because many of them are bigger and heavier and have flatter grills. So vehicles seem to be contributing, the size and weight and shape of vehicles seem to be contributing to crashes that may have been serious injuries in the past and are now becoming fatalities.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion that we approve the targets.
Motion approved, Noak.
Second, Rotary.
Moved and seconded. Any questions again? If not, all in favor signify by a vote of aye.
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 Carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the executive session minutes, which we have to review. However, there's only one meeting that I'm aware of. And my point here is that we don't necessarily need to go into exec session if the board would consider making a motion not to do that. But the second motion would be then to, which would be part of the executive session minutes anyway, or meeting would be, council would recommend that we don't release those minutes because it involves personnel. So if everybody understands that, I'll entertain a motion that we do not go into exec session.
I'll make a motion to reflect the chairman's comments.
Second, Rotary.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? If not, all in favor, signify by a vote of aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
vote no. Second motion is that based upon recommendation of council, that we do not release the minutes of that executive session. I'll entertain that as a motion.
So moved, Noak.
Second, Rotary.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? If not, all in favor, signify by a vote of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote of no. And the motion carries. John, I've taught you well. Next item.
Even sick.
Yeah. Item 7 is, what we're asking for is the review of the executive director's current contract. The motion would involve the executive director, the executive committee, I'm sorry, to review the current contract, make recommendations to the full board for a final recommendation going forward. So if there's no objection to that.
So moved, Noak.
Motion that we allow the executive committee to do that. Moved and seconded. Any questions? Not all in favor, signify by a vote of aye.
Aye.
Vote no. Motion carries. I think I've ripped through the motions. If I missed anything, I don't think so. I think I got them all.
Session.
Yeah, we did that.
Yep. So I'm just
Got through it. Again, I want to thank everybody. I'm sorry, the meeting is open
Well,
to,
we've
I'm
got-
sorry.
We've got committee reports. There's so no action here, but I just wanted to
Oh.
highlight for you all, item 8.1 is committee reports. A part of the thing, one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that we are getting our committees to report back to the board their findings and activities for the year. So just noting that you'll see in your packet a link to that report. If you have any questions, you can please feel free to reach out to myself, or we can work with the committee liaisons on staff to talk with you a little bit more about what's been going on. I think other than that, then.
Yeah, I'm sorry for a little bit of confusion because we had to skip this agenda around due to attendance, but I think we've gotten through it. We're down to now other business before the board. I'm sorry, I can't read. Microphone.
9:03.
It says approval, but was it for information?
Oh, you are correct. It was
But is
just,
that what we already approved?
it was informational. We wanted Nora to provide sort of an informational presentation on our climate action planning work, and the approval was in the procurement. So you're right, that was a error on our part, so.
Well, we gave
Thank
her
you.
additional support. How's that? Meeting's open to the public. Any comments we have online? In person? Okay, with that in mind, we.
Yeah, yes, Garland Armstrong, formerly a
Garland, how are you,
display.
man?
Happy New Year to you, Mayor
Likewise,
Bennett.
sir.
All right. I just want you to know that Heather had a birthday on New Year's Day, and
That's right.
we're here. And yep, she's a New Year's baby, born in Blizzard 1979 in Melrose Park, Illinois. So, and I just want to kudos to y'all for making sure that the ADA in compliance with everything. And I also want to make sure that we need some translators to make sure that they are well prepared for this, because they have no idea what will happen in the next year or so. So we need a lot of communication to make sure that the disability community is on board and see what's next to help out for CMAP, so that they can be well prepared, and so that won't be any glitches, and making sure that this will help them get well prepared, see what we can do in helping out to make sure that our disability community and the region where you are at, to make sure that they're extremely well prepared for this, because definitely, God forbid, like Leanne says, in 2026, a fiscal cliff coming, and I hope the business will be well prepared for this, because they need to see the data, see what's next to help out, to make sure, and for other things too. So I hope they'll be well prepared for this, and God forbid it's gonna be a lightning and thunder protest of it if they're not understanding and being educated of it. So I hope they'll be extremely well prepared, and making sure that the ADA and others, for those who can't speak clear English, to understand what will be happening next, so how they can jump into it. So I'll be glad to answer any questions or comments if you have concern about it.
Thank you, Garland. Thank you for your advocacy, as always. We will continue to work in that direction.
All right.
God bless you. Take care. Any other comments, questions? Again, we'll meet in February as second week, as always, and no further business for the group. Aaron, you have?
No, nothing else.
With that in mind, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned, no.
Moved in second, all in favor, signify in the usual manner. Motion carried, meeting adjourned. Thank you all again.
Valentine's Day for the night. Make sure we have some chocolate.
I'll bring chocolate for y'all to bring home for your Valentine's.